inyong lahat. I know it's a difficult moment because of after lunch, and also there are some more excited waiting for the Mass. We are also excited waiting for the Mass, and this is just the last, I think it's the last input for today regarding the Unawareness talk. I will not really give any new idea. It's just a matter of maybe, in other words, saying more or less the same. So it's for you to help you to have your outline and the content of this talk, which I put there, Unawareness. But the title actually is Unawareness of Life and Love. Actually, sometimes we just put there unawareness, and my first reaction is unawareness of what? It's my first reaction. And also, as different people were saying here, it's a bit difficult to explain and illustrate about what this talk is all about if we don't have the background of the first stage, which we have in the next slide, I think. So, just a reminder, the first stage, maybe there is some talks missing there, but more or less, this is the reminder. In the first stage, we go through these talks, and then that's when we start the second stage. And in the link, we said, an awareness of life and love, in my opinion, is more not really an awareness that this exists, but an awareness maybe existential unawareness. What does it mean? We know the talks, we know the content, sometimes we know the words, we know the outline, but we lack in tasting it, taste and see how good is the Lord. So unawareness is not just intellectual unawareness, or it's also an awareness in experience. More of that. And then in the next slide, it's a bit like this. Why is it so important, the first stage connected to the second stage? Because somehow the talk here is the reverse of the coin, or two sides of the same coin. And actually, life and love in the first talk, and unawareness of life and love, they have something in common, which they start a new stage. And there are these kinds of connections between the talks. This is not for us to deepen now, but it's good to know that, for example, God the Father, which is number 2, your life comes from love, is also, the opposite of it is no to love, or breakdown of love is what we call sin, is say no to this Father. So now, and then for example, your life is for loving, is the commandments, Ivan. Love one another, love and you will live. So the commandments is the opposite of not custody of love, when we don't take care of that love. Anyway, there are connections, and I just showed here some examples, but where we will focus is the connection, life and love, and the unawareness of life and love. Again, they have in common being the first talk of a stage, and this is, it's more important than we might think at the first moment. If you remember in Life and Love, you will remember that this talk does not necessarily have an outline. It's a very difficult talk sometimes because Life and Love does not have an outline. You can make your own outline. It's what we try there is just to tell the people that life and love are the top interests of their existence. And that is what we all have in common. Priests, non-priests, missioneros, missioneras, married couples, young, old, one race, another race, one continent, really the top interest of all our existence. And this is, that talk, the first one is just to wake up the people to this, and to make them realize it's true actually what we are looking for. When we look for money, when we look for a good job, we are really going after this, life and love. This is we don't need to talk about God in the first talk, you are in life and love. We don't need to name it. The talk is not a description of God as life and love. We just try to connect with the experience of fulfillment of life, and that when there is a strong love. We don't need to name God actually in the first talk. It's not the moment, it comes after. The same way, here in this side, in the unawareness, that's why we were saying, in this first talk of the stage of conversion, we will not dwell in describing sin or sins. It's not the moment to give the people those lists of sins. Sometimes we do. It's like preparation for confession. We are so used, it's so easy to give the list of capital or venials, capital, the 7, go through it, prepare for confession. How many times did we do this? In the recollections, in Lent, we give, and it's not really, it does not have anything to do with this talk of unawareness. I think when we do it, it's more or less clear we are not really following the dynamic of the temario, and we are jumping, and we are not going through this talk of unawareness. So I understand sometimes it's because of time, it's easier, but it's not the matter of this topic to give the people the list of sins. And I observe we tend to do it a lot in our recollections sometimes, parishes, retreats. We are not focusing on sins in this talk of unawareness. The same way we don't mention God, and we know God is not here. It was mentioned before. So there was a change, and there implies a change in the tone of this talk. In talks, it's very important the tone. You can have brilliant words, the tone. It's very important. And the tone of this talk is not telling the people you are a sinner. There was a previous temario. We know now this temario, time set. How do you say it? Time set? Tim said. Before Life and Love, there was another one. I don't exactly know what the title is, the previous one. But there was different names for the talks. And actually, in the previous one, it was before the 80s, there was a talk which was Unawareness of Sin. And this is where unawareness of life and love comes. But the talk before, because everybody had faith at those times in the 60s. So basically the talk was telling the people, you are doing a lot of sins and you are not aware that it is a sin. So unawareness of sin, and that was the tone in previous theme set to the life of love theme set. This talk was called Unawareness of Sin. So the tone was, you are doing a lot of sin, you are not aware of it. So now I will make you be aware of all sins that you are committing. So that you will feel somehow guilty, and that you will feel this need of conversion because you are scared. Oh, I'm doing a lot of sins, and I did not know that was a sin, so I know sin is bad, so I will. Something like this was the tone. And wake up to the awareness that you are a sinner. It was more or less the logic of an awareness of sin. Now in this new theme set, it's different. The tone is, you are not aware of what you are missing. You are not aware of the life and love you are missing. Not aware of the many things you could do if you were to know the life and love coming from God. It is different to say you are lacking life of love than to say you are full of sins. So this is a bit of a difference in the tone, no? And actually, for me it's important to be able to grasp this nuance. There is a huge difference in the tone. You are a sinner, but you don't know it. Or you are Christ. You are full of grace. But you are not aware about the capacity that it may give it to your life. So this is it. So examples of images of not being aware of life and love. We gave here very beautiful and soft images, but the one Jesus gives in the gospel are a bit more, not the other. Is when he says, don't give holy food to dogs and don't give pearls to the pigs. This could be also an image of the link. No? We are not aware we are receiving holy food, we are not aware we are receiving pearls, and we are just trampling, and so we are not assimilating the food, and we are not treasuring the pearls that were given to us in the ideal stage. Okay, so again, the dog and its tone should be a great help for the people to receive light, rather than a palo to make the people feel guilty. So this is for me really important. So how to do this and how to go about it, I don't know, because there are many ways. Again, like life and love does not have really an outline. This talk, it has an outline if you wish, but it can have different outlines. You just write one. So one, at least for me, very similar to what was said today, one possible way is to make people aware of the process of becoming unaware. It is a process. It does not happen overnight. The talk should be a kind and a gentle and a friendly invitation to break the circle or the cycle that leads us to unawareness. I only can break that cycle or that circle if I am aware of my unawareness. And the question is, like as in the slide you are there. So that this question was made in the link we heard today. If God created us for and then all the talks of ideal, why is it that I am so dry? Why is it that I am so in the darkness? Why is it so? There is a hymn, a liturgical hymn in the Spanish liturgy of ours that says, "My life is a desert where not even a flower is born." This person was really in crisis. Anyway, so it's the contrast. We talked about contradiction in the first point of ours. We talked about contrast. So this is one example. We can move on. And so this, just take note of the quote. This is what St. Paul says. So don't be scared. The contradictions is not a sin. To feel this contradiction is not a sin. It's just every human being. And St. Paul is a saint and he went through it. So don't feel discouraged when we see this huge difference between ideal and our reality, because it's good that we feel this contrast, because the greater saints went through it. And it's very interesting really to read how he expressed himself. What a strange thing happens to me. I don't understand my life. The right and the good that I want to do, I cannot. And the evil I want to avoid is precisely what I do. Who will set me free from this situation? The question is very important. Who? It's not what will set me free. It's a person who will set you free. Who will set me free? I feel pain and disgrace. What a wretched man I am, or what a wretched woman I am. And this is St. Paul. So this is a saint. Experiencing the contrast is not a hindrance. It could be a blessing. if we know how to address it, no, we go on, and that's next slide. Yeah, and this is another way of saying the same thing. You can find it in Gaudium and Spes number 10. It's the same, but said in another word. For in man himself, many elements wrestle with one another. Thus, on the one hand, as a creature, he experiences his limitations in a multitude of ways. On the other hand, he feels himself to be boundless in his desires and summoned to a higher life. We want a higher life, a better life, a most holy life. We want it, but we are constantly wrestling. Next slide. Yes, pulled by manifold attractions, he is constantly forced to choose among them and renounce some. Indeed, as a weak and sinful being, he often does what he would not and fails to do what he would. Hence, he suffers from internal divisions, and from this flow so many and such great discords in society. So, all what we see in the society outside, the fightings, the wars, the world that we see outside is also a reflection of the world that it is inside with all these struggles. And for me, what is important here is, you see, internal divisions. It's not necessarily sin. It's really part of human being to find this, to experience this tension. Next slide. We go. Yeah, this is just an image, burden, wounds, rupture. This is the kind of words we can use instead of using sin. The same way we don't say God, we say life and love. So instead of saying you are a sinner, you are this, you are that, these are human realities, experiences of us all. Suffering, rupture, wounds. Gaudium et Spes 10. This is Gaudium et Spes 10. Using these words. Okay, so next. And then again, we don't come there overnight. It was said there is a process of deceiving ourselves. So there is a process. Okay, so what happens here is that when we are in that situation with divisions, burdens, contradictions, I'm not a psychologist, but maybe someone who studies psychology could confirm. Our mind cannot carry it out for a long period of time. If we have strong contradictions in our lives, or the extreme would be a doble cara, we can maybe handle it for a while, but not for a long time. We really feel the need, and this is, I think, psychology could confirm it. We really, not only we want, we really need, and we wish to get rid of those contradictions in our lives. We really need, because our psychology cannot handle double life or double cara. We cannot. So what we do, there are two ways for it, more or less. We want next time. So there are two ways to be simple. Maybe there are many other ways, but just to be simple at this point. There is the first this one was proposed also in the talk. I don't know if in point 3 or point 4, but there is the way most of the saints also choose, like Santa Teresita de Lisieux. She finds herself so far away from God that she said, okay, I will take the elevator. I will. So there is a straight way, which is to be honest, to be sincere, to recognize my situation, to ask for God's help. And to ask for God's help is not only God, it's to ask the help of the church, to ask the help of the community, to ask the help of the brothers, of the sisters, to really recognize I need help. And this is a way of getting rid and really trying to get rid of those big contradictions that can be happy for our lives. And then the second way, next slide is, normally we choose another way. We don't choose the first way immediately. We want to be the ones to rescue our own selves. We give excuses or justifications for our behavior, because this way that we choose many times, the self-justification, can be called a mechanism of defense, because I cannot handle to be double personality, or I cannot handle the contradictions in my life. So there is a mechanism of defense, because our psychology is not done for it. So and basically this is the process that was described in different ways in the talk, in the outline. So at the beginning I call it a vice, because or a bad habit, because it's not always, it's just I sometimes stumble there. Then the self-justification I give excuses to my behavior. We already discussed, shared a lot of different excuses we give to our behaviors. And then the vice becomes normal. What was at the beginning a vice and just a bad habit, and becomes really normal. And then in the next slide we can see the same, like what was abnormal becomes normal, what were painful regrets at the beginning, after the first time I lied, the first time I was unfaithful in my consecrated life or in my marriage life, or what was so painful then, no regrets, insensitive to pain. And the doctors here might also confirm that the worst is when the patient does not feel the pain anymore. No? If you go to a room and one is shouting, the other one cannot even say anything, maybe the worst is the one who does not feel the pain, not the one who shouts more. So in the spiritual life, something similar can happen. What was extraordinary, it is part of my schedule now. And so the result is, call it as you wish, call it as you wish, but darkness and dryness might fit to describe the experiences that we reach when at the end of the process of self-justification for a long time. Okay, so in the next, so basically we are not telling the people that they are sinners, but we are telling them that they are stupid. They are telling us, not them. So it's like, it's worse to say you are sinners or not, you are stupid. This is words. This is words of Saint Paul. It's not my words. So basically, and this is the core of the talk. Actually, we are now at the core of the talk. What we are trying to explain, because again, we are trying to give light to the person to what is happening. We are not just. This is the core of this talk. It's a talk where we want to give light. What is happening to me? The first question, the first point. What happened to me? So basically, is that I decided to take the place of God. I decide what is good or evil, and I don't trust what God advises me. And that's why I don't listen. So when we listen those little voices, don't do it, or don't go there, do this, we don't listen, because we are the ones saying, no, God is telling us what's good and bad, and I say, no, I am the one to decide what is good, and I am the one to decide. Don't tell me anything, I don't know. So this is what St. Paul calls stupidity. It's what he calls stupidity. And then again, linking, again next slide, next slide you all please. So this is the number 16 of Godliness Fest, the one Elaine mentioned. Conscious is the most secret core and sanctuary of man. There he is alone with God, whose voice, the voice of God, echoes in these depths of conscious. So, if I don't follow that voice, it's similar to expel God from my conscious. and my conscience will be empty. Because not because God does not want to be there, because I don't want Him to be there. I want my echo to be there. I want my criteria to be there. And this is the root of sin, is I make myself God. When you go to Genesis, many times, the Adam, Eve, and the tree, and the forbidden fruit, normally always is connected with the sexual sin, no? Always be connected, Adam, Eve, the fruit, the tree, the apple, no? The apple, so all is connected normally with lust, and it's really not about it. What this is all about is that I decide not to listen to God. I decide to be the one saying what. Because the tree, what was the tree? The tree, the hacienda, how is it? I cannot remember. The tree was the science of. ¿Cómo? Knowledge of good and evil. The knowledge. So that is where we decide not to listen. We decide to be the ones, the tree and everything. And this is, when it happens, by not following His voice but mine, I expel God from my life. And this is very important, because sometimes we say in the Bible, and we will see how St. Paul, because I will give just the final passage of St. Paul. Sometimes in the Bible says, and if you destroy God, or the temple of God, God will destroy you. It's not that God destroys us. It's that by destroying the temple of God, which is expelling God from my conscience, because of that, I will be destroyed. Actually, because God is not there. So it's just a way of saying that God destroys us, but it's not God destroying us. It's us expelling God from our lives, and that fact will destroy us. So that's where chaos comes, that's where lack of strength comes, emptiness, and poisoned will means, lack of will. I want to do this, but I cannot. I wish, but I cannot. But this is all because we are left alone. We abandon God, and we are abandoned to our own strength, which are very limited. So this is the root, really the core of unawareness. Inconsciencia means to expel God from our conscience. And then we become, this is like a sound, if you want to take it. We have mouth, but we cannot speak. We have eyes, but we cannot see. We have ears, but we cannot hear. Noses, but we cannot smell. We have hands, but we cannot feel. Feet, but we cannot walk. Actually, this has to do, again, next slide. It's like the broken Christ. The ideal, one of the last talks devised to be Christ, or in community, body of Christ, to be Christ. And now we are Christ, but it's like we are a broken Christ, not really the Christ God wished. So we have the passage of Isaiah 5, and we can also see there Galatians 5, 16 to 26, the difference between being Christ or to be a broken Christ, actually. But that's a consequence, no? And so it's not to say to people, you are so bad, you are a broken Christ, you are so bad. No, it's to explain how can we arrive there. Why was it? It's because you decided to be God. Then this is exactly the stupidity. Again, and then, so in the end we are talking about the main hindrance, not is to become living the ideas of pride, arrogance. I act as if I am the God of my life. And this is really the core of unawareness. And again, and then the next. Here in this passage is the last, I think, the last slide. In this passage, Romans 1, 18 to 32, there is the summary of all the talk. All the talk is there. But of course, if we read the passage, has sometimes a strange language, but everything is there. So if in the verses 19 to 20, no need to read now, just read it when you have time, but it's there. In the passages verses 19 to 20 is where St. Paul says, and he states, God created us well, with the capacity to discern good and evil. So that's basically the link of our talk, no? We were created well. We are supposed to be okay. We are supposed to, and so on. So and then, number 2, instead of following His merciful love, we decided to follow our own way. And that's what He states in verses 20 to 21. By self-justification, because He said, there is no excuse, but you found excuses. But there is no excuse because you were well created to discern good and evil. There was no excuse, but you found your excuses. And then in the third point, he explains in what does it consist to this decision not to follow. And then root of sin, abandoning God, the Creator, and making my own self God. This is in verses 22, 23, 25, and 28. It's there. And then the consequences, he has a big list of consequences, but it's so interesting to remark that the talk, sometimes when we give conversion talks, we start here with the consequences and accusing people and telling them what they are wrong and this is not and we don't really explain the process, because the consequences, I have, here, Tagalog, New Testament, just examples of consequences. No? Verse 10, sobra silang masama, malupit, sakit, at marumi ang pag-iisip, lagi silang nag-iingitan, nagpapapatayan, nag-aaway, nandadaya, at nag-iisip ng masama sa kapwa, nagtsitsismes. It's a very big list. But it's so important to see that we are not accusing the people of experiencing all these things, because this is just human. It's not the problem. The problem is the decision of not allowing God to be the one to tell me anything. And I want to be God of my life. And this is the core for me. The moment that we become unaware of life and love, because the one who is the creator and the source of life and love is expelled from our conscience and from our lives. And then the last point is all in the verse 32. St. Paul goes a bit further than we were today. He says, not only that, but you lead others astray. You encourage others to do the same that you are doing. And it's also there in this summary, which is also part of consequences. Now, not only you do that, but you encourage others to do so, which is even worse. So you are God of others already, not only about it's really anyway. And then the final step is, as it was mentioned also today, about the positive tone, and then there is a way out. This is not the end of the world. There is always the invitation to come back, to be like children, to choose that first way that you mentioned before. Go straight, be sincere, Santa Teresita Delicio. There is always a way out. Be sincere, close to God, trust, believe. He is always there. Prodigal son, all these things. And so this is the tone also towards the end, I would say. Don't do it so at the beginning, because we really need to dwell, and during this talk we should really dwell on giving light to the people about the process of unawareness. And this is it. it's already 10 past 3.